On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, our final episode previewing the upcoming Western Canadian Baseball League season. We'll meet up with the Okotoks Dawgs and Edmonton prospects. Welcome to episode 34 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. Hope you've enjoyed the extra episodes we've brought you over the last few weeks as we've been looking ahead to this summer's WCBL season. It all starts officially this week, and we're looking forward to bringing you some of the stories of the players, the coaches, the officials, the fans, the volunteers, everyone who are making the league tick. So stay tuned for more on that. We'll also have a few other things cooking for the podcast, so you'll definitely want to subscribe if you haven't already. This week's episode features two teams who have embraced the idea of a rivalry in this league. Not only do the Okotoks Dawgs and Edmonton prospects not like each other on the field, but they also have a couple of coaches who won't shy away from answering questions and are quite thorough in doing so. We'll start things off with Dawgs bench boss Mitch Schmidt, who is ready to avenge last year's disappointing end to the season. And yes, we touch on a certain incident involving a chair in Edmonton. Mitch, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
No problem. Look forward to a fun season.
It should be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for just the fact of getting back out into the summer sunshine at Siemens Stadium. It is the closest one to my home anyways, and I know a lot of folks are really excited about packing the barn this year. What has you excited, though?
Honestly, it's after my first summer up there, I had some expectations. I've known people that were up there. I've been up there, to Okotoks before. And what makes me excited is just what we're going to do, not only on the field but in the community. Just because this group of guys is a great group. We're gonna, some of the youth camps and stuff like that. The guys hanging around, with the friends and family and the fans after the games. I'm one of those guys that, hey, I love winning ball games, but I love to see the relationships and the things that come out of the game of baseball. So look forward to seeing some of the people that we met, that we created relationships, with last summer, at the games, but then also seeing some of the other little kids running around to, share the love of baseball out there.
You hear a lot about that when it comes to Okotoks, just because you've got this small community just south of the big city, and it's become this baseball haven, and everybody calls it unique. Would you call it the same way based off of your travels around the baseball world?
I do. It is very, very unique. I've coached, 5-6 different places during the summer. Worked USA Baseball, and just the relationships that you see up there. It's completely different. It is that small town atmosphere with, the big town area. You got a lot of kids that are coming, families that are coming from the Calgary area that they're getting that small town atmosphere when they come to Okotoks to hang out with the guys. And that's, John has done a great job of making sure that everybody is accessible and understanding that, this is something special. Let's do this right, and it's a lot of fun. That when about halfway through the season last summer, I was like, you know what, there's nothing that compares to this. It is just well, hey, think about this: you're coaching in the Northwoods, and you're coaching the Madison Mallards that has 4,000+ people coming out. They're not letting their fans come down on the field and and have access to the players, the coaches, and letting the kids run the bases and playing catch with the guys. That just doesn't happen in these other markets where Okotoks, it is a family atmosphere. It's teaching the love of the game and just teaching how to do things the right way. And that's what that community is about. I think back all the way when, we had the two young men, that mom lost her life in Las Vegas last summer, that they came out and threw the first pitch. Well, nobody's going to go out and and really welcome them into the community, like that happened last summer. It was pretty cool.
When you look ahead to this summer, I mean, I know you're still in the midst of playing a little bit of college ball here, but looking up and down the roster, what stands out to you? A couple of players, I don't want you to pick favorites because I know that they're kind of like your own children, but you got anybody that you got a real close eye on and think that the fans should be looking forward to this summer?
There's some returners. There's some new guys, but honestly, I think what you're going to have is a couple guys that are going to be really, really electric. On the field as position players, you got Jacob Melton, which plays at Lynn Benton Community College for Coach Peterson. The kid is an absolute freak of nature on the baseball field. He does things that are just special. He can play first base, he can play center field, he's going to hit, he's going to run. He's actually not going back to Lynn Benton for his sophomore year. He's already signed to go to Oregon State next year. And when Oregon State is coming in and plucking a kid out of junior college after their freshman year, you got to be doing something special. Then got Corey Longacre, the kid that's from the Seattle area that actually plays for me at Bellevue. Good chance that he's going to be the NAIA first-team All-American shortstop. But we're not planning on using him at shortstop. So we might be the coaches that are stupid, but knowing that he is an absolute unbelievable center fielder, we're planning on using him in center field. He does a lot of really special things, and I've had the pleasure to watch him play at Bellevue for 2 years, and I think when the fans watch him, they're going to go, holy cow. Those are the two position players. We're another guy that I think is going to be really special that the fans are going to go, they're really going to take to, is Eddie Taveras Cabrera. He is a kid that's originally from the Dominican Republic, that family moved to the United States, lived in the Chicago area. He's a big 6'5", 6'6", right-handed pitcher that I actually have scouts that have confirmed that he has touched 99 miles an hour. And he's a big guy. You'll look at him and go, oh, my God, it's imposing, but he's that teddy bear. I've actually had the chance to work a youth camp with him, and little kids they see that he is a little kid, too, that he loves being around the game of baseball. And, little kids are running up, jumping on him, and he's hanging out, taking a knee, getting down to their level and, talking to the kids. And I have a feeling that he's going to be a guy that is going to be a big fan favorite just because of the electric arm, but also because of his personality.
How important is the personality side of things when it comes to a short season like the Summer League with the Western Canadian Baseball League, and making sure that all the players are able to get into that mindset real quick? Because we all know that if you get off to a slow start, it's hard to get back and get that traction in the middle part of the summer. It is. And the thing is to have that personality, to have that, just the quality of being able to bounce back, bounce forward, bounce, every which way, because the season is so short. Some of these guys are run down because of their college season, and they probably came directly from, summer ball to their college season, and now they're going directly into summer ball again. It's to have that personality, to be able to bounce back, to be resilient. They really need that, and I think honestly one of the things that being in Okotoks gives them the chance to understand that there is pressure, but also doesn't matter who you are. They're going to forget what you did the night before, if you made a mistake, because they want to see you succeed the next night, and that's, like I haven't specifically said to you, but I've said to a number of other people that it's something special about Okotoks, that they know the game of baseball, and that's what makes it easy for these guys to play up there. This is your second season now as the head coach here in Okotoks. What did you learn from year one that you'd like to move into year two to make you guys go that next step towards the championship this time around?
Well, obviously the first thing that I looked at, we pushed and pushed and pushed that, hey, we got to be first place in the regular season. That we have to take first. We have to take first. And Medicine Hat took first. But honestly, as long as we get to the playoffs, we take first, second, third, or fourth. If we get into the playoffs, we have a chance to win the league championship, the playoffs, and get that ring at the end. So we played guys, and we kind of wore them out a little bit going into the playoffs, and it was that win tonight, and we ran with the next pitch mentality that, hey, doesn't matter what happened, we control what we can do on the next pitch, and our big thing was we wanted to win every game, and we understand now that, hey, you know what, if we do make a mistake and we drop a game 3-2, or as long as we stay competitive and keep the guys fresh, we're going to be better for the playoffs. And the playoffs are the key. That's when we built up and we built up and we built up and we built up too quick. That we went on the absolute amazing run at the end of the year, and I think because we were so comfortable that we knew we were going to win a ball game, that when we came into adversity in the playoffs, that's when the guys, they hadn't lost in a while. So, hey, we dropped that game 1, and they were like, what's going on? What do we do? And it helped because when we went up to Edmonton, when our backs were against the wall, we bounced back, we beat them. Then we got into the tough game 4 there, and we should have won it, and we didn't. We just didn't get the timely hits. And, I think we had too much success early, and what we got to do is we got to, hey, keep it on that even kill. Not as many peaks and valleys.
Is there a part of you during the course of the season that almost wishes you go through a little bit of adversity rather than almost roll right through the regular season and then hit that, not necessarily a wall, but hit some sort of adversity in the playoffs? You'd almost rather hit it a little bit earlier on in the season so that you learn to deal with that as a group?
Yeah, and that's the big thing, hey, I'm going to take Bellevue here. We took the run at the beginning of the season. We were it was pretty ugly. We were 13-7 at one point, and then we ran off 39 of 40 games in a row that we've won. And our guys, to a point, we talked about it, said, hey, at some point we're going to lose now, and you guys have learned that winning's a mindset, and we got to understand that when you do get into some adversity, we're not just going to jump out of it. You guys have to work your way out of it. And we've talked about that hard work turns into good luck. And when we put in the work, that hard work, it'll turn into luck on the baseball field, because we've worked so hard. And so I think personally our Bellevue team's going to work through that, but also the Okotoks team this summer, we're going to have to go through some of those where we hit that adversity early on or midway through the season so we can learn how to work out of it, whereas we didn't last summer.
Is that something that you look for when you're recruiting as well and looking at different players saying, oh, they went through this during their college season or they've done this in the summer, and so you kind of get a gauge that, hey, they can be mentally tough in a short season like the WCBL season is?
That's part of it, but personally what we do is, our staff, we've looked for guys that played in specific programs that we know the coaches, we know got good recommendations, and kids that are going to be resilient, they're going to be good, their personalities, that they're good guys that are bounce back guys, and we looked at that, it's plain and simple, you got the guy that's ready that, hey, he's going to put it on the table every day and say, I'm going to play my hardest. That's the guy, whether we're winning or losing. And we've looked at some programs, went across, obviously we got guys coming from Andy at Len Benton, and, they know how to win. They know how to bounce back when they have an issue. We got guys coming from Mesa, with DR. They know how to win. And, Mesa didn't have the the worst season this year, but they didn't have the greatest. At one point they were 19-19 in their conference schedule. To go 19-19, mm-hmm. There's a lot of ups and downs there. And DR specifically went through and said, okay, here you go. We want this guy, and this guy, because day in, day out, they're the guys that are there helping support the team when they're not on the field. But then when they are on the field, they're putting it on the line. So, and that's where we, when we were out looking at guys, we're like, okay, here you go. These are the types of guys that we're looking for. And it helps knowing, and DR being one of those guys that, he's been around the Dogs forever, so he really has done an awesome job in saying, hey, here you go. This is what we need. We need this component. We need this component. And it's fantastic.
Is there an identity that you want this team to envelop over the course of the season? Once they roll into camp and once they start playing games, you're going to say, from day one, this is what I expect out of you?
Yep, and we've already pushed it. We've sent emails out to the guys that are coming in, and it's all about attitude and effort. The identity that we want is it's all about attitude and effort. There's hey, in life, there's two things that you can control, I can control, DR can control, John can control, anybody. All the way from the top to the bottom. It's our attitude and our effort. And hey, you got a great attitude, your effort's going to be good. And when you have that good attitude, that positive attitude, people are going to fall behind with you. You might be that guy that's a leader, that's vocal, that's, physically a leader. People are going to fall behind when you have a great attitude and a great effort. And then you're going to have the followers that if they have a great attitude and effort, they're going to bring guys with them and they're going to follow. It's what it all comes down to. Hey, baseball's a game of failure. There's a reason that nobody's hit, a career over 400. And, you tell me this, if you got Joey comes home from school and he says, hey, Mom, Dad, I got a 40% on my science test today. Mom and Dad are going to go, oh, what's so special about that? Mm-hmm. But you got one of these guys calling up and saying, hey, Dad, you know what? I'm hitting 400 on the season. You get a kid hitting 400 on the season. Every fan in the stands is loving that guy, mm-hmm. and 60% of the time they're failing. So that's the thing, attitude and effort. We want the guys to go out, and here's the deal. If we show a great attitude and great effort, the fans are going to love these guys.
You segued so well into my next question, which was going to be all about those fans and just giving them that, as you mentioned, they know the game, they love the game, they want to be able to identify with that game. And so that lunch pail mentality is probably something that you really want to strike into them, because they know, or that the players know that they're going to get the fans on board the minute that they show that they're going to be giving it everything they got with a good attitude.
Exactly. That's there's smoke and mirrors. Some of the teams out there are smoke and mirrors, and we want to be up front. We want all the fans to see how hard these guys are working, how much they enjoy playing the game. And me as a coach, hey, I'm the big guy. I do things a little bit different. You guys the fans have seen some of the previous head coaches here. They've seen the coaches on the other teams. I like to interact with the guys. During the game, I go from one end of the dugout to the other. I talk to some of the fans that are right behind the dugout. I want to have just as much fun as the players do. And when they can see that I'm having fun, it keeps them relaxed. Guess what? The fans see that these guys do special stuff on the field. That's how we get them on our side. And, if you look at it, I think of the fans that were out there had a blast last summer, and my goal is to let's have a big blast, have a lot of fun, and win that championship at Siemens Stadium this summer. Where hey, John will be very, very happy with it. The fans will be very happy, and the players. There's one team in the Western Canadian League that's going to be happy at the end of the year that they won a championship and give these players hey, something to talk about when they go back and try to push for other players from their current schools to want to come back up to Okotoks for the future.
I got to have a little bit of fun with it, and that is, are the Chairs going to be having fun with it at the end of the season?
They will. It's unbelievable. The chair throwing incident. Every coach that I talked to heard about it. They saw it. It ended up being a situation that didn't agree with the umpires. Right? It came to light, and then it's brought some notoriety to not only to Okotoks but to the league, where throughout the community, the baseball community with coaches, they saw that, hey, the Western Canadian League, it's not just a league that guys go up and drink beer and get some at bats and throw some innings. That there's coaches and the players have some passion for the game, that they want to see things done right, that they want to play hard. And I think what it's done is it's helped the league across the board. Hey, it was an unfortunate situation where I could have taken it different, but I think a lot of good came out of it also.
Well, I'm sure in a situation like that as well, is it becomes a bit of a rallying cry for the team to a certain extent, because they go, okay, wake up time. But even beyond that is, hey, if the coach is that into this game, I better be that into this game as well. Yep.
And we sat around and talked, and it was pretty funny. After everything was said and done, one of the players said, "You realize after you threw the chairs, we scored 3 more runs? It was a close game, and we put the game away because we knew that we had to go out there and we responded for you, and you had our back, so we had your back." And that's cool. That's something that is different about the game of baseball that you're not going to find in any other sport.
One final question for you, and I want to go back to Bellevue for a second, because you've got a young man down there that has been ripping the skin off the baseball, and he's from Okotoks, from Calgary, that being JT Patterson. What's it like having him in the lineup, and what's he been like having him this season?
It's been a blast. It's a lot of fun. So as far as JT this last season at Bellevue, he's really made some adjustments at the plate. He's, if you see JT himself, he realized that, hey, this is my senior year in college. I physically and mentally need to lock in and make this the best of it. And really worked his butt off in the weight room. Made sure he was eating right. So if those fans that know JT from 4 years ago when he first was up there playing for the Dogs, he kind of a portly little guy, and he's done a great job of transforming himself. He did a good job last year. He's even a better job this year, and made some good adjustments at the plate. Really took a leadership role, swinging it well. And as things went along during the season, he had a rough start, but then by him being him, he made those adjustments early on, and you saw the tear. Literally 24 home runs, and 9 of them came in 3 games in 3 weekends. So unbelievable.
I was going to ask, was that ever the expectation out of him to be able to have that kind of power?
We didn't think we were going to get 24 out of him. We knew we were going to get double digits. We were looking at the 12 to 15 is what we thought we were going to get out of him. And last year he had 17. So we knew that it was going to be there. We knew that what was going to happen, knowing that he showed some power last year, that he was going to get pitched around a little bit this year. And honestly, at the beginning of the year, that's what happened, is teams made sure that he wasn't going to hurt them. And then what we did is we found the right guys to put around him, and they couldn't pitch around him. They couldn't pitch around the other guys in front of him, behind him. And so when that happened, then it gave him the advantage just to run with it, to go.
How important are guys like that who are going to be able to talk to their buddies, talk to their friends, and do almost a little bit of scouting and a little bit of maybe glad-handing for you to recruit for a short summer season like the Dogs have?
It's huge. It's when the players themselves have a great experience up here in Okotoks. What happens is they go back and and to be honest, we had a list, we still have a list of guys that were calling us wanting to come up. And, and not just, anybody. I mean, we have a list of some very good players, that are saying, hey, I want to come up and play in Okotoks. I want to come up, and you sit there and you're like, man, how do we pick and choose? And the majority of that isn't because of DR, Andy, Joe, and me that going out and contacting coaches. The majority of these kids came running to us, and we had to figure out, okay, which ones have the right personalities, which ones have, that can take it up here, that as far as putting out the right product that we want to make sure that, hey, we got a guy that this guy can go out and play well on the field, and then after the game, he's going to be the right guy in the community. It's done a big favor for us having the right guys come up here, because then they pass it on, and even we've got kids that called and said, hey, I want to come up. I'll even take I'll take a tryout. We actually have two guys that are going to be in Okotoks this week that are going to work out for Joe, and all they want to do is they want to come up and say, hey, I want an opportunity for you to see what I can do, and I want to play up there. So that we didn't have on our list, and they directly came from players that previous. Well, in fact, Cade Goda, former player of the Dogs about 6 years ago that's playing pro ball, emailed me and said, hey, I got a guy that's looking for a place. Here you go. And obviously Cade had a great experience up there. He's a guy that was here 5-6 years ago.
I'm curious, what does it mean to you to be a part of the Dogs family, and beyond that is to have your own legacy embedded within that organization?
To do that, to know that, and to know that the guys that have been in as Dogs previous to, hey, I've made phone calls to make sure, some of the guys come up there, an Amende, a Trejo, there's multiple guys that have come up before, and knowing how John and the Dogs are going to treat these guys, it's really, really something special. And knowing past coaches, to know that, hey, these guys, the foundation that they built, I get to help build on it. Hey, and the big thing is I got DR, the guy that was there from the start, that he's there. And, there's days that I say, hey, I'm lucky because DR should be the head coach. He started this whole thing, and I got the guy sitting on the bench with me. And he's a phenomenal coach, and that's the thing that's special is you have DR, Joe, myself, and Andy all have that same baseball philosophy, that it's not just baseball, it's about life. And we got the guy at the top, John, that supports that completely, that he's giving these guys a chance to do something special on the baseball field because he knows that they're going to do something special in life down the road. Mm-hmm. And you go through and look at some of the guys that have played for the Dogs in the past. There's some leaders in the communities, in the states and in the provinces. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast and for all your time, and looking forward to having you back up here for a second season as head coach of the Dogs.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
In the provincial capital now, Jordan Blundell is taking over as the head coach of the Prospects. He's obviously no stranger to the organization, and he's looking forward to being at field level this year. And he, too, has his eyes set on making a big first impression and getting the Prospects back to the championship. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on again.
Yeah, it's a second time around for you, so you're the first one to go twice, and looking forward to this one as we get ready for the summer Edmonton Prospects season. And what excites you most heading into this summer?
Well, the game of baseball excites me. To be able to get to the first pitch of opening day. Obviously, that's always something special in every team season is that first game as a group wearing the uniform. And that's something we've been looking forward to forever. But kind of once you get through that, it's business as usual. There's there's 162 of these kind of thing, and in our league there's 56. So it's exciting for guys coming into town. They've never been to Edmonton. There's an exciting part for our coaching staff and our organization welcoming players in. They're seeing their look when they walk into Remax Field, because it is a special place to play, and the clubhouse, and getting out on the field and looking in from the outfield and seeing the big buildings downtown, and then seeing the players react and enjoy the fans here, the experience that when people are mulling around the park and it's starting to fill up, and we're 15 minutes away from first pitch and they're down the line and they're getting loose to get going. That'll be fun for us to enjoy that with them and watch them enjoy it. And once you get going in the game hasn't changed in a long time. So it's still, you got to throw strikes and you got to put the bat on the ball, and you got to do some of those things to put yourself in a position to have success. So we're really excited. I'm really happy with the team that we're looking at on the whiteboard here. I think everybody looks good on paper, and we're excited to get them up here and see what they can do live and in person.
Let's talk a little bit about that team on the whiteboard right now. And obviously, as you go through the season, you have a lot of dreams and aspirations, but in a short season like this one, you never know what's going to happen. And I'm curious, as you look up and down your roster, who's really exciting you?
Well, I'm sure all my guys will listen to the podcast, so they all excite me, right? But no, we've got
it's like picking favorite
returning.
Kids, right?
Yeah, we've got a couple guys returning. Bo Gilbo was with us last summer. He's an offensive player. He's versatile. He can play multiple spots defensively and is good at multiple spots. He's a veteran. Gives you a good at bat. Just a quality at bat every time. Tough out. And a good guy, a good dude, really good in the clubhouse. Gets along with everyone. We expect him to be a leader in just how he goes about his business. He's been in a winning program. He's won, at every level. He knows what that takes. He knows how to do it, and he's always been a big part of his team's winning. So we're really excited to have him join us again this summer. We've got a catcher coming in from hometown is Sammamish in Washington, and he's a student at Yale. He was a true freshman at Yale this year. Jake Gary is his name. Jake had an outstanding freshman year at Yale. Handles the bat, really good behind the plate. There's leadership qualities that you kind of hope that your catcher has, and he definitely has those. He'll be a fun guy to throw to. Pitchers like him behind the dish. He commands it. He's got some presence behind there, and that position's important. Your catcher is quite often the lifeblood of what's going on the field, and we feel really confident with Jake back there, and Bo Gilbo also plays that position, so we feel really good about those two guys. We've got some interesting guys on the mound for sure. Karen Olton is an Alberta boy. He's a Prospects Academy player. He's been with the Edmonton Prospects here for a couple of seasons, and he'll be back. And he carried the load for his college team this year. I think he flirted with getting to 90 innings, so he's worked pretty hard, and he put up really good numbers. And like I said, he carried their pitching staff. And Taryn's a gamer. He's a leader. He's a guy that he'd give you an honest day's work, lunch pail, hard hat type guy. So we're excited about Taryn being here again, and there's leadership qualities there for our pitching staff. Taryn's done this before. He's been in the league. He knows what it's like to go on the road and visit all the other ballparks and what the crowds are like and what the teams are like. So that experience, you never can really put a price tag on what that means, and it'll be great to have Taryn help lead some of the guys that haven't done this before. We've got a pitcher from College of Idaho. He is from Moses Lake. Hunter Boyd. Hunter's he's a guy that's carried a pitching staff himself. He had some experience in the West Coast League the past 2 summers. I believe he was in Wenatchee with the Apple Sox. Led their team in innings pitched kind of thing, and he's that bulldog type guy that he's going to get after the other team. He's going to attack. He's going to be one of those guys that you count on to give you a good outing every 5th or 6th or 7th day, or however that kind of works out in a college schedule. A little bit different than the big leagues on the every 5-day type thing, but yeah, he's one of those guys. Every 5th day gives you that good outing, and we're looking forward to having him up. He's a good person. I really enjoy getting to know him on the phone and through text, and creating that relationship as best we can. Before the guys get here, we've got a 2-way player. He's an outfielder / left-handed pitcher. His name is Tanner Roundy. Tanner's from Henderson, Nevada. Tanner led the University of Jamestown offensively and on the mound this year. He's an honest day's work type guy. Again, he's going to be fun to watch in the outfield. I got a chance to see Tanner play in Arizona in March. I was down there. I had a chance to pick up some college games while I was down there in the nice sun when we were getting some snow up here. It was a pleasure to watch him play. It's an easy outfield with him. He's able to get good jumps on balls, really good routes. The balls that get hit that you think, oh geez, that's getting down, and then just somehow he's underneath it again. So that was really cool to see firsthand. Obviously, I've got a connection to that program, and all the reports where this is a guy that you want to have, and these are the reasons, and then I got to witness it firsthand. He'll give us a quality at bat. He's played in summer leagues before. He was with the Chico Heat last summer, and they won their league. And he's a winning baseball player, so he knows what it takes. He's been on winning teams his whole life. And then when you put him on the mound, he's a competitive pitcher. He's a lefty. Got good stuff. He's a baseball player. So it was cool to see him pitch too when I was down there. So he's definitely a guy that will help us on both sides of the ball. Excited to have him. He's a leader. He's a quiet leader. He goes about his business and gives you an honest day's work. And I think at the end of the day, that's what a lot of our roster looks like. They're baseball players. They love the game. They enjoy the process, the game day leading up to the game, and the preparation it takes between outings as a pitcher, and the pregame work you do as a position player with BP and working on your craft defensively. I feel like we have a lot of guys, like our roster's full of players that just enjoy that side of it. And, in the baseball terminology, putting work in. And when you're putting work in, when it doesn't seem like you're putting work in, like a regular job, that's when you have something special. I think we've got a bunch of guys that, they look at what that means of putting in work. It's what they want to do. It's not a job. They live it and they breathe it and they love doing it. So that's exciting for us as a coaching staff, no doubt about that. And then I guess one more guy we can hit on would be Nolan Walker. Nolan Walker from Boise, Idaho, I believe. I hope I got that right. Played at College of Southern Idaho. He's a good player. He's kind of a middle of the order bat. He's got a little bit of power, gap to gap. Hopefully catch a couple balls here at Remax and give the fans some fun. I think he'll help us defensively at first base. From all accounts, he can pick it over there. He can move a little bit. So that'll be cool to have a guy that can pick up some of his infielders and your job over at first base is to make some other guys look good. And back in my playing days, I'm really thankful that I had good first basemen. So I know what that's like as a player to have a guy over there that's going to make a couple plays for you. It does make you look better. And, as a pitching staff, to have a guy over there picking a ball out of the dirt or making a play and getting your feet where they need to be to getting out. How that's just a big, huge boost. So we're looking forward to having Nolan up. It's been fun following him and his progress this year as a offensive player. And he had a pretty big year. And I guess I'll go one more guy. Lastly, we've got a player from Puerto Rico joining us. He played at Taft Community College. Javier Ramirez. He's from Caguas, Puerto Rico. I really like Javi. Javi's been we stayed in touch quite a bit over the spring season. He's a first team, all conference type guy in their division in the Cali JUCO circuit there, and I love how he moves. He's a baseball player. He can run a little bit. He's going to make plays in the middle of the infield. Be able to handle the bag and the double play feeds, and I think that there's some offense there too. There's a little bit of power there for a middle infielder, and he loves the game. He's one of those guys that he can't wait to do the work that's required to get prepared for the game. And like I said earlier, that's kind of what our team has been made up of, or guys that just love playing the game. So excited to have him up as well. And and that's unfortunately we don't have time to talk about everyone. Mm-hmm. There's like I said, there's all these guys. It's really looking forward to growing with this group. I know Coach Guzzo, working with the pitching staff, he's excited. He's had a chance to talk to a few of the guys and who he hasn't talked to. Obviously I've spent a bunch of time getting to know some of these guys, and I think we're all like-minded. We all have the same goal in mind. We want to have a successful summer, and we want to be there at the end, and I think that's no different than anyone else in the league. And that's the fun part when we get going. May 25th is that's when the first pitch starts, and that's when we can really put our plan into action and see if we can get something done here.
I always wonder when a coach and when a team is putting a club together for a short amount of time like that, is it a prerequisite for players to be of a certain breed, whether it's, you mentioned it, they've got to have that hard hat mentality, and that's, it seems to be sort of a common denominator for a lot of these guys. Are you going into this season, or were you going into this season with the expectation that the guys have to have a certain mentality, or are you hoping that those who don't have that mentality will buy in real quick?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you're trying to, recruit strangers, basically, you kind of start at the top, and do you have a relationship with the program? You know the head coach. If you do, or if you don't, you see if you can develop a relationship. Maybe there's something there for this year, and maybe if it doesn't work out this year, that could be a long-term connection and a burgeoning friendship that you've created with another program. So. For sure, I think we're fortunate in this sport that there's a ton of good people playing college baseball that have their priorities set. They're pursuing education. They have an eye on what they want to do after the game. If they're not one of the lucky ones that gets to continue to play it and get paid for it. So I think that it's not hard to find guys that want to get after it and really understand what it's like to play in a summer league and what it means to us as our community and our franchise, that these are the kind of things we're looking for in players. So when we kick off that recruiting, the beginning of the recruiting season, which frankly never ends, it goes 365. Mm-hmm. But when we kind of really get down to the nuts and bolts, it's like early September. It's like, hey, we're ready to make some signings, get some contracts out. Through those conversations, we indicated this is what we're looking for, whether that be to a head coach or to the player specifically. When we get down to actually talking to the players, this is what we're looking for. This is the timeline. This is what our goals are. These are what our goals are as a franchise. This is what you are to expect when you get here and what we provide for you guys. And at the end of the day, we're realistic. There's some adjustment. Coming from all over North America, and you've never been here, and new teammates and whatnot, and we get it. And this is supposed to be fun as well. So we hope that we're able to provide them the environment, which we know we can. We have in the past, and we'll continue to do that. For the opportunity to improve their own game and get better while they're here, and at the same time, play to win and play to, try and find a way to be that team that's successful at the end of the summer. So, I think all those conversations were really positive. The guys that took us up on the contract and signed and committed to come into play for us this summer, I think they understand what we're here for and what we want to do and how we want to approach every day. It's a short season, or it's a long season in a short time frame. 56 games is a lot. It's another college season, so there'll be some ups and downs, and I think that the schools that we've got players from, there's a lot of successful schools on the board. There's a lot of schools that from day one have aspirations of doing something special. And I would think everybody goes into first day of fall ball with those goals. Realistically, not everybody has a shot to accomplish them. And I think that, for the most part, a lot of the schools that we have guys from, they do have a realistic shot to do something special. And, having that pedigree in the program that you're playing in, what that means for you throughout the year and your own development and your own mindset of how you approach, the upcoming season. And then when you get to season, what it's like to be in season in a program that has expectations for itself. I think we gravitated to programs that set the bar high. And, because that's the way we want to be. At the end of the day, we want to set the bar high, and we're going to do everything that we can to achieve that. So I think it's a good fit there, and I think the guys were excited to hear that when we went through that recruiting process of this is what we're here for, and this is what we're going to try and get done. I don't think that that's the way it is everywhere, honestly, and no disrespect to any programs. Some programs, we're just going to play a summer season and that's what it is. But, I think for us, we want to be successful. We average 2,000 fans a game here in Edmonton. We're hopeful that number increases like it has over the past 3 years. The attendance has gone up every year. And that's important for us. We want to do well for our fans. They do a great job for us. They come and support us, and, they cheer when they're supposed to cheer, and they ooh and ah when they should ooh and ah, and it's a really fun environment. So that's part of what this is. It's an opportunity to play in front of people that truly do care about you. So that's exciting. We're really excited for that. And like I said at the start, that's a cool thing to watch our players get to experience. Not everywhere gets a ton of fans out to their college games. It's early spring. The weather might not be great, and you've got some student fans, and 50, 60 people some places, and and you're playing the game for your school, and here you're playing for the program. But there's a bunch of fans that want to see us beat some of our rivals. And when you come into Edmonton and you don't know what it's like up here in Alberta, we've got some built-in rivalries as Albertans. Edmonton doesn't like Calgary, and Edmonton and Lethbridge and Medhat, Fort Mac. So through all the everybody that's growing up here in Edmonton that have played youth sports, I played hockey growing up. We didn't like playing Calgary. We didn't like playing Fort Mac. It's a rivalry. So that's kind of cool. And these guys walk into that where we'll go down to Lethbridge, and Lethbridge doesn't want to see Edmonton win games in Lethbridge. So the players might change over the course of seasons, but the fans that come to the game don't. And they get after it. They don't want Edmonton to go down to those markets and win games. And same for us, same for our fans. They don't want other teams coming into our barn. So that's a cool thing for them to get to experience.
Is that a big reason why you have so many local boys on the team? You mentioned Taryn earlier, but you have the Braden Custs, and you have the Joe Carrolls, and you have these different players with connections. Obviously, you guys have Prospects Academy up there as well, but they can feed off of that because they've grown up with some of those rivalries.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been a big part of this is our guys have grown up playing in some of these ballparks and know what it's like to go down to Okotoks or go up to Fort Mac and play high school baseball or academy baseball against these teams. And they've been groomed in this. And then now this league's here, and they get an opportunity to, play at the highest level in this area and get to experience these parks and the fans, in that capacity versus, high school where, it's a lot of friends and family. Well, that kind of changes at this level. There's regular people, normal people just coming out to the game and they want to have a good experience. And they want to cheer for their hometown team and, have a beer and a hot dog and relax or have a family night out with the kids. It becomes a little bit more into the entertainment side of the game at the, the minor professional level where it's, there's people spending their money that they went to work for to come and, be entertained to some extent. So I think that's really cool. And our guys that, grew up and watching games in the ballpark, when they were 14 coming to games, when they were playing in bantam and midget and kind of thinking, maybe that could be me one of these days. I'd like to play for the Prospects. I'd like to play in Remax Field. I want to have that experience. I want to have a big game-winning hit or, close out a game and get a save and strike a guy out to end the game. As a kid, when I was 12, coming to the pro games when they were here, I definitely thought about that kind of stuff. I'd love to be on the field when I'm older, and that still exists in Edmonton, and I know that because the young guys from this area that we have signed have said that. That they remember, coming to the ballpark when they were 14 and watching the Prospects. So, if that's not, one of the coolest things ever, I don't know what is. It's exactly the way it should play out. You dream big when you're a young minor baseball player in the community, and you come out here with your parents, and you're playing catch with your dad when you're 6-7 years old, and it's kind of now we're adults now, and you've made it to this level, and it's like, hey, this is pretty cool. I'd like to continue to do this, and for a lot of the local guys, Taryn's at the end of his college run, and we have some guys that are, just beginning their college run, and it's really cool to have kind of both sides of the spectrum there. With a veteran player that's done this before and grew up in the area and did all the things through high school into college and played summer league here, and then with some guys that just finished their freshman year and they're starting that journey with us. So it's part of what makes it an awesome experience for us coaches. At the end of the day, it's like creating relationships, and we all want to win games and we all want to have success. And there's no doubt about that. But the game. The game means something outside of just the wins and losses. It's the experiences, the friendships, all those kind of intangible things that you go through with a group of young men through a season that is where your memories are held at the end of the summer. You kind of remember the trip, the 6-day road trip that we took. That we had fun in the pool as a group, or whatever those fun random things that happen. Or we all ate at one of the burger joints in the small town, and then it was the best cheeseburger we had all summer. Those kind of things are what kind of give you that lasting staying power in your memory bank.
You grew up in Edmonton, an area. You get to take over the reins of this team now. It's not that you're not a newcomer to the team and the program by any stretch of the imagination. But what does it mean to you to be able to put on all the duds again, make sure that you're out there and putting this team together and being a part of this program in a new position like you are this year?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's something that I was looking forward to having this opportunity at some point, and the opportunity probably presented itself a little quicker than that I thought it would. Part of the reason that coming back home from the island was to be involved in the academy and help this area's youth and help grow the program there at that level. And the Western Canadian Baseball League is a great league. I definitely miss not being in it, even though I had great memories and great times coaching youth baseball out on the island, and I had a chance to win a provincial championship and go to nationals with a great group of kids in Nanaimo. The WCBL it's a cool little league, dude. It's that minor league baseball. Fans in the ballpark, the anthem at 7:05, first pitch. The the crowds roaring, all that kind of stuff. It's really a unique thing that we have here in Western Canada, and I'd love to be a part of it. The level of baseball is excellent. You get as competitive as a college players as you can. Like, these guys all want, on all the teams and all the rosters, everybody is a good player or a great player at their school. So it's a bit of a funnel system as well. There's 1,500 college baseball programs, and there's 300 summer league programs, that are really trying to do it at this kind of level. So there's a bit of a funnel system. So you're getting guys that are really focused and really want to be here and really want to have a career in baseball. Whether that ends up being an organized, or they get a chance in independent baseball, or they end up over in Europe or Australia and have an opportunity to see the world through the game of baseball. It's kind of like that last stepping stone before they get that opportunity. And I enjoy being around those players. I was one of them back in the day. It's something that I wanted to do as a player and get that opportunity. And fortunately enough, I had a little cup of coffee in the independent league there, and that was a dream. It was a dream to be able to do that and get to play at that level. And so I totally respect where these guys are coming from and get it. I know what they want to. I know how they feel about it. I know what they want to get done. And me personally, I love to be around that kind of environment. So, looking forward to the season and looking forward to trying to help the guys as best I can. And I know Coach Guzzo's in the same boat. He's going to do everything in his power to help whoever he can to, achieve what their goals are set at, for sure. And that's what's cool. The WCBL provides that opportunity for players. There's not a ton of places where you're going to average over 1,000 people a game. And we pretty much have that across the board here in this league. So what a cool thing to do in the summer, hey?
Can't wait. I'm getting goosebumps because we're just so close now. So
I know.
Oh man, Jordan, appreciate the time. All the best this season. Looking forward to what the Edmonton prospects have up their sleeves for this summer.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks very much for having me on, Joe.
That'll do it for our WCBL previews for teams here in Alberta. Again, a giant thank you to all of the teams for joining us and for being so candid while doing so. We can't wait to make our way around the province and see all of the teams in action. And like I said off the top, really looking forward to telling more of the stories from around the league this summer. We'll be back with another episode on Thursday, and then we'll go back to our weekly podcast, at least for the time being. No spoilers, though. Until then, thanks again for all of your support of Alberta Dugout Stories.